Internet. The GM got really pissed off that this game we're about to talk about didn't come out sooner, so he could have used it because it has all the stuff he wanted. Instead, he had to use some jank-ass hack nonsense. So he's still kind of getting over that for a little bit. So session's canceled until he feels better.
Bitch, why the fuck you calling me out?
Because I just think it's really... Because it's just funny, and it's just funny every time I think about it.
Fucker. Yeah,
it's just
correct.
Because
it is me. I am pissed that this game came out 4 years after my fucking game started.
It's just one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, LOL, Lamau even.
Dog.
Like, I don't. I guess I'm curious. How long did it take you till you got to the point where you were like, oh, damn, this is doing everything I wanted to do?
Literally the second it got some mutations.
So it's okay. So character creation.
Literally, yeah.
So not long. Didn't take long.
Literally none.
Yep. Yeah.
Bruh. My brother in Christmas.
It's funny because when the Kickstarter came out, and I was looking at a lot of the early playtests of this game, or not even playtests, just the like early unfinished version. I was like jumping around and skimming through, and with every subsequent release, I'm like, oh, Isaiah was trying to do that in his game. Oh, he's trying to do that in his game. Oh, he's trying to do that in this game too. Wow, this just keeps... Okay, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it took almost no time at all for me to be like, oh, that would have been useful.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been useful. Oh, shit, that would have been useful. Oh, that's literally what I was trying to do. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even when it came to like radiation poisoning, you know, that thing that was a massive plot point in my campaign.
Plot point in your game. Yeah.
The whole thing that Ant was dying of insane radiation poisoning. Yeah, that would have been useful.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yes, sir.
Or the lingering injuries.
Oh yeah, you did do a lingering injuries thing too, didn't you?
Uh-huh.
That's right. Yeah. Well, to be fair though, the major injuries thing has been in there since Worlds Without Number. I don't think Stars had it, or if it did, I don't remember it. But
I don't remember.
So that's been there for a minute. But yes, indeedy, we are back. We are back with the Without Number games, the fourth installment, Ashes Without Number. I don't know if it's the final installment or not, but it kind of feels like the final installment to me, just because I don't know what other major like wide scope genre you would hit,
Westerns.
But you could just, so this is the thing. You start trying to think of other genres that he could potentially do a Without Number game for, and what you realize is that because you can mix and match the 4 games, you can kind of almost make anything with these 4. I feel like I think you could do a Western with Ashes pretty easily, and maybe a little bit of like, depending on your flavor of Western, throw in worlds if you want some magical stuff, or like throw in cities if you want to throw in some weird tech shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I had that thought. I was like, is this the final Without Number game? And it might be. I have no idea.
It very well could be. I mean, you do have a good point. I off the top of my head can't think of anything, but
right. That's the thing. I couldn't either. I tried being like, what else would there be? But it's, once you hit sci-fi, fantasy, cyberpunk, post-apocalypse, it's like, those are kind of the big boys in the tabletop. I mean, you can get into really niche specific things, but if you're starting to do really niche specific things, that's when you start operating in the world of like combining the 4 of them in various ways, Yeah,
that the like whole mix and match thing that they got going on.
Yeah. I guess anime shonen nonsense isn't in there, but I know he's not going to make a game like that. So
yeah, that doesn't really fit into the OSR.
That one probably wouldn't. Yeah. But yeah, so the 4th game, Ashes Without Number, which is primarily focuses on making a post-apocalypse game. I say primarily because there is some sci-fi-esque tidbits that throw in there, although post-apocalypse does have a lot of sci-fi elements often, so that's not that out of character, I suppose. But yeah, it's in Ashes Without Number. It's Ashes Without Number. It's another Without Numbers game. Before we get into all that, take a moment, say hello to Jesus, and hit follow or subscribe on your podcast platform of choice.
I gotta say hello to Jesus.
Say hello to Jesus. Yeah, you do. It's because, I don't know. Why not?
I don't know. We ain't on talking terms.
Jesus is always on talking terms with everyone. It's his dad who's the asshole. So this is the big G man who's got problems with people for no reason, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, that's just like my opinion, man. But like, you know, I'm just saying that's how I feel, bro. I'm just saying. Like, big G man does some questionable shit. It is just kind of like my opinion, man. It's true. All right, I mean, we don't need to beat around.
I can be friends with a Christian when someone's like, yeah, Old Testament God, kind of an asshole. I'm like, oh, you're my favorite kind of Christian. Good.
Kind of an asshole. I mean, yeah. I mean, no need to beat around the proverbial bush on this one. Fucking, you know, lock and load. Ashes Without Number. Yeah. Ashes Without Number post-apocalypse game. So, as with all the other Without Number games that we've talked about, which is to say the other three, we are not going to get into the nitty-gritty mechanics of each individual thing. If you would like to get into the super specific nitty-gritty mechanics, go back and listen to the Stars Without Number episode. That will get into like the core mechanics, but as with all the Without Number games, the core mechanics of Ashes Without Number are still the same as the other three by design. So I will be skipping things, jumping around, glossing over shit, etc., etc. I think, was there another thing, another caveat? I don't know, probably not. The book starts with some fiction, a little like story bit, which I think all of them start with, then some really basic broad strokes, explaining of what the players and the GM should bring to the table and like what kind of game this is. Important note with this one that the other Without Number games don't necessarily do is that this game in particular, although it covers the idea of post-apocalypse, it covers kind of three subgenres of post-apocalypse. That being the Mutant Wasteland, the Deadlands, and After the Fall, as he puts it. Mutant Wasteland is kind of the default assumption for the game, which is somewhere along the lines of Mad Max, Fury Road, and Fallout is basically kind of where the Mutant Wasteland bit falls. You could also say maybe a little bit of Borderlands, at least the first Borderlands. I can't speak past the first one.
Still Borderlands.
Okay. That kind of vibe. There's like another good Mutant Wasteland example being the Metro books and the Metro games, you know, Metro 2033, 34, and 35, or if you play the video games, 2033, Last Light, and Exodus. That's all Mutant Wasteland style post-apocalypse. That's kind of the default assumption for this game, and the default setting in this game, which is called the Albuquerque Dead Zone, is a Mutant Wasteland setting. But if you don't necessarily want to do that, we also have Deadlands, which is your classic zombie post-apocalypse. Your Walking Deads, your Last of Us, although I would argue Last of Us has some of the Mutant Wasteland vibes also, but Walking Dead, Last of Us, Dead Rising, right? The Deadlands campaign is your zombie specific thing, and there are zombie specific rules and like bespoke things about how to deal with zombies as like an enemy. It's the Deadlands rules feel very Left 4 Dead, I would say. There's like specialized super zombies, and there's rules for dealing with big hordes of zombies, and rules for like sneaking through big hordes of zombies and shit like that. It's very Left 4 Dead vibes. And then there's the After the Fall campaign, which is basically society just collapsed like a day ago, or like a week ago, like something just happened, and your player characters are in the immediate aftermath. So like,
this is your like Battle Los Angeles or like 2012, like
yes,
everything went to shit overnight.
Everything went to shit overnight, and you're dealing with the immediate ramifications. So in the After the Fall style campaign, you're probably going to be playing normal Joe Schmo people who are just in a shitty situation, and the player characters are brought together by pure random circumstance. You know, a nuke went off, everything went to shit, and the player characters happened to be all in the same store at a mall or whatever, and so they're together because of that. That's the kind of After the Fall style vibe. So within this game, you have kind of these 3 mini subgenres, and the rules kind of ebb and flow out of the 3 subgenres, and some of the rules are more useful to one than the other, blah blah blah. Most of the rules, again, because the default assumption is the Mutant Wasteland vibe, most of the rules will fit pretty well into the Mutant Wasteland campaigns, but the Deadlands and After the Fall, you're probably going to be taking more stuff out. Especially in After the Fall campaign, I think you're going to be taking quite a lot of rules out, because that's quite a different stretch of a vibe from a Mutant Wasteland game. Actually, honestly,
I feel like you could kind of have a bit of both. I think the After the Fall can have some interesting connotations by taking little chunks of each, right? Like the Deadlands, you can have an After the Fall where the zombie outbreak is happening right now, right? Not like Last of Us where it's been 20 years and we're kind of dealing with it, versus
the very early stages of the zombie outbreak.
Yeah, and then, you know, the Mutant Wasteland thing, you can have it like, you know, what's the one, like Borderlands is a good example, right? Like Borderlands kind of presumes that there was this big corpo war, and then like right after the war ended, when all the corpos left, that's Pandora at that point, with all the like Iridian crazy tech that's mutating people and all the like toxic waste.
Yes, you can definitely mix and match them for sure, but the kind of the way they slot by default, I think most of the rules apply to the Mutant Wasteland vibe the easiest with the least adjustment, you know what I mean?
Yes. I'll give you that.
And also, I think it's worth pointing out that this idea of the like subgenres to the campaign also highlights this particular Without Number game is a lot more modular than the other 3 are. Even like all of the Without Number games are built on the idea of modularity at base for sure, but this one I would say is even more modular. And what I mean is that there's a lot of rules in the book that are very take it or leave it for your needs, and so depending on the kind of game you're trying to run and shit, you might end up in a situation where you're combing through a lot of rules you don't need. Because this one is intended to cover a pretty broad scope, and basically like 80% of the rules are optional, even though the book doesn't actually phrase it exactly that way. It's kind of how it works. Like we'll get to what I mean, but there's a ton of shit that definitely is heavily optional. Character creation, which is where all these books start. Character creation in this game is the same. Attributes, skills, backgrounds, foci, all that stuff is the same. The skill list has not changed. The major and much like Cities Without Number, Ashes Without Number does not use classes. They use edges, and edges act as class style abilities. It is worth pointing out that the edges in this game, though, are split up into the subgenres. So there are edges that are how does it phrase it? Universal survivor edges, and then you have mutant wasteland edges, deadland edges, and after the fall edges. So there are a couple that are also chopped into their own vibe, which isn't to say you can't cross them over. If you're mostly doing mutant wasteland and you want to use a deadlands one, you can. Just, it's not intended for that. So if you do it that way, let the GM know so they can make adjustments. The big showcase, though, in character creation is the first big optional thing here, which is mutations. This is kind of what I mean on the modularity, where if you're playing a Deadlands or the After the Fall campaign, it's assumed the characters are completely human. So you're just going to ignore the mutations part of the character creation. Now, like Isaiah said, if you want to mix and match for some reason, maybe the characters do have mutations, that's a different story. But default assumption is you will ignore mutations if you're not using the Mutant Wasteland setting. So basically, if you are using Mutant Wasteland and you as the GM are letting players be mutants, it's pretty simple. It's very much it basically works the way you would think. It's a simple but effective system. You declare that your character is going to be a mutant. You don't need to take an edge or anything like that. I take that back. You do need to take the mutant edge to make yourself a mutant. So at character creation, you have to pick. It's basically like you're picking the mutant class in a sense. And then once you've done that, it's broken down into 3 chunks where you have stigma, negative mutations, and positive mutations. They're pretty much what they sound like. The stigmas are physical characteristics. I
was thinking about
of your character.
Your stigma is, why are you a weird? It's like you're a weird little guy. What do you look like? And then the mutations are, why are you weird? It's pretty funny.
Something like that. Yeah.
Like the stigma is like, how are you outwardly weird? And then
the stigma is how can people tell you're mutated? For example, stigmas are like, you have glassy texture to your skin. You're luminescent. You have bird wings or feathers or something like that. Or you have like leaves growing out of your body, or like mushrooms growing out of your body, right? That's what the stigmas are. It lets people know this guy's a weird mutant. And you can actually pick a stigma that can be easily hidden, but you do take a bit of a penalty to your mutant points, because what you do is you have your positive and your negative mutations, and effectively you have a pool of points to spend. You have three points to spend on positive mutations, and then you can choose what you want. But there are certain things that can either increase your mutant points or decrease your mutant points. So for example, if you roll two mutations from the same category, because they're broken up into categories, that will reduce how many points you have, because essentially you're kind of weighting your luck towards a specific kind of mutation, because the default way you do it is just roll die, see what happens. And then you roll for your negative mutation, because you have your positive mutations, which are your bonuses, and then your negative mutations, which are your downsides. You cannot avoid having a downside. So, and just for the sake of, for funsies mostly, let me, oh, stop it. Let's see. So we need what? We need 1 die. I'm just gonna roll a die for the sake of it. And we need a D100. Roll dice. Roll miss some. That's not. Oh, that one. There we go. Sorry. Stop. Oh, there's a button for stop. All right. All right. So like if I roll and I got a 93, So I would go to, this is for negative mutations. So for my negative mutation, I got lightly touched. Roll another negative mutation. It manifests so lightly, however, that it has no meaningful effect on you and applies no penalties. Wow, that's a really good one.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, I got a 55. 55 negative would be narrow focus. You have difficulty paying attention to your surroundings. Your wisdom modifier suffers a -1 penalty, and you cannot develop the notice skill. Okay.
I can't believe your negative mutation was having ADHD.
A little bit, yeah. So then for my positive, I roll a D3 to figure out category, and I got hybrid mutations, and then I would roll, what is it, D10? Yeah. I could roll a D10. I got a 2. So my hybrid mutation is arboreal aptitude. Let's see. Arboreal aptitude. You're an unnaturally nimble climber, able to scale all but perfectly smooth surfaces. You can hang from vertical or overhead surfaces so long as one hand can purchase. All fallen damage you take is halved, rounded down. So I got weird tree frog powers.
Nice.
And like that's basically the vibe. Now you have 3 points to spend, so you can make multiple rolls. You can also just pick, by the way. I forgot to say, if you roll. So if you pick, it costs all 3 of your points. If you roll, you spend 1 point. So you could have 3 positive mutations, but they're random, or you could just pick the one you want. Or you can spend 3 points to roll 2 positive mutations from the same category. So there's there's mix and match options on how you can do it. But basically, pool of points, you have negatives and positives. You cannot avoid having the negative, and you have to deal with a stigma in some way. Yeah, I mean, anything you want to throw on the end there?
So I was going to ask you what 3 mutations you would want for a character.
Oh, I didn't look at enough of them to say.
Oh, you bastard. All right.
There's why do you have an answer? I definitely
no. Yeah, only because I joked about it yesterday as I was reading the book. I was like, you have just enough mutations to turn yourself perfectly into Satoru Gojo, so I would absolutely do that.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Look, yeah, you just need mind over body, which like lets your brain control like how strong your body is, and then telekinetic reach, and then you need the panoptic vision, and then you too can be the honored one.
Oh, sorry. Also, I'm a filthy liar. I said you can't avoid taking a negative. You can actually choose not to take a negative. I was
gonna say, I thought the whole point was that you get rewarded for taking a negative.
If you take a negative, you get more points to spend on your mutations, but you can avoid taking a negative if you want to. Sorry, completely. I guess I must have been confusing that with another rule. I don't know. What is the point? What?
Of not taking a negative. That's what makes it fun.
The point is, I don't know, because people are lame and don't want to do that, I guess. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Well, actually, so you may have said it and I think I missed it. So if you don't take a negative, you can only get 1 mutation. If you do take a negative, you get the 2 extra points, which gives you 3. Or if you do take the negative, you get 5 points.
So if you take the negative, you have 5 points. And so what that means is you could potentially have 5 positive mutations if you roll all of them randomly. Or you could pick 1 mutation and roll 2 random mutations. Or you could roll 2 positive mutations from the same category and then have 2 other random mutations.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think I get it.
You can also take up to 3 negative mutations, which would give you 6 extra points.
That would be hilarious.
So you can make your character quite a fucking mess.
I kind of want to do that.
Yeah, because if you took 3 negative mutations, you would put yourself at 6 total points, which means you could potentially roll 6 random positive mutations. So that would be wild, but you could. And there's also, I think it's an edge that lets you gain some more mutations later.
Lord.
Oh, no. It's an edge that... No, I'm sorry. The mutant acceleration edge, you gain 2 additional mutation points. So you can actually start with 8.
Holy shit. Assuming you roll them all, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anyone ever would, because that's kind of a lot. But I think, you hypothetically could.
Be unstoppable.
Something like that.
That or you're just a blob of gross, like...
Or you're a blob of gross, yeah.
You can just get really fucked on it. It's like, you got thermal vision, all right, that's cool. And you got echolocation, okay, that's cool. But, like, none of them actually do a lot. Or you can be Satoru Gojo. There's like...
there's a lot of potential for some really weird shit. Also, there are pseudo-psychic mutations where you have, like, telekinetic powers and, like, thermokinesis and a force field. Yeah, so, like, there's that, too. So, you could have, like, big orangutan arms and also force fields. Do with that what you will, I guess.
Just turn yourself into a fucking Jokero from 40K.
I don't know what that is, but sure.
The orangutan techno monkeys.
I have not seen that, but sounds about right.
I love them so much.
All right. So yeah, the mutations rules are quite fun, or the mutant rules really are quite fun, and you can do some pretty wacky woohoo nonsense with them.
We should play a game of where would Isaiah have used this? Because
in
the rules for Hellscapes, and one of the reasons why I took the rules from Hellscapes is because you have 2 like subspecies or sub races of human called bestials and mutants. And bestials, kind of as it describes, you're like a beastkin, you're like a dog person or a cat person or like a crab person. And then there's the mutants where you're like an X-Men, which is pretty much closer to this. But there's no reason why you couldn't use the, hybrid mutations or the exotic mutations or the structural mutations to turn yourself into like a lion man, for example, or as what we had in our party, a like bird person who's like a pseudo phoenix person, a shark guy, and a bat chick, plus a Ant's character, the cryokinetic gremlin, the cryokinetic tinkerer gremlin. So you could just do all those things. All those things that I needed several different things for and a lot of jerry rigging. You could have just done
at the
one system.
Side note, in the back half of this book, there's also foci to let you play beast folk. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. If you go to the Creatures of the Waste chapter and then you get to the beast folk bit, there's also beast folk origin foci that let you play beast folk. So
wonderful.
Yeah. But you can, so yeah, you can also do both too, right? Because the mutation is an edge, right? So you can pick a mutant edge and then pick a beastkin foci and be a combination of the two. So like you could be a wolf man with like telekinetic powers. So yeah. Yep.
Don't mind me, I'm just molding.
No, it's yeah. I knew you would. Then so you have your final touches and everything for character creation. That's all the same stuff. Your foci, and then you add together your hit points and your attack bonuses. Blah blah yabba yabba. Then we have your starting equipment. So there are a couple of different options for starting equipment in this game. Also generally based on the 3 types of campaigns, although you do not have to use them strictly in that way. So the first one is called Hapless Innocence, and if you go with Hapless Innocence, your character literally has access to whatever you have on your person in real life right now. So like
that one's really fun.
If you have car keys in your pocket, then you have car keys and a car. And it's like that kind of vibe. If you have your phone, you have your phone, right? If you have a knife, you have a knife. And then the GM will tell you if you're going with the Hapless Innocence one, whether you're cut off from your home, so like your character can't get back home, or if your character can get back home. And if your character reasonably can get back home, then you can also have anything that would be reasonable for you to have in your house based on your PC's background. So like the character who's a psychologist probably doesn't have a gun, but the character who's an ex-Marine might have a pistol. Right? So that's the hapless innocence one. It's kind of like whatever you got on hand, and then you go from there. The hapless innocence one is generally intended to be used for an after the fall game. Actually, no. So the first two could be after the fall or for a zombie game. They kind of work for both. The other option,
the hapless innocence one would be so good for me.
Yep. The other one you have is You Saw It Coming, which is basically your character is sort of a doomsday prepper of some kind. Like your character was prepared in some fashion. So there's a big list of gear stuff that you can have. So basically, I'm a prepper, so I have a tent and I have food, I have a flashlight, and I have a shotgun. And there's a list that you have to pick 4 items from the list. On top of, you also get the same stuff that you would get from the hapless innocent option. That one's You Saw It Coming. And then the one that most people are gonna use most of the time, I would say, is the Wasteland Warrior option, where you're a road warrior, you're a Mad Max guy, you're a fucking you're a war boy. You have a primitive melee weapon and a bow. You got a knife and a backpack and some stuff. You got some clothing. You got some food and some water. And then you can pick from a list of a couple of other items you might have on hand. I think it's... you can either pick one item from the list or roll randomly for 3. And basically that one's like the Wasteland Warrior one is like, apocalypse has been going on for a while, and so I'm, ready to roll. I got my shit already. Again, that's your Mad Max vibes. Then we get into like the core rules of the game, all of which are unchanged. All the usual, your skill checks, your saving throws, the injury and healing rules, combat rounds, all the hit and damage stuff, and AC and morale checks. Turns and rounds and scenes are all the same. Saving throws still work as is. The rule for traumatic injury or traumatic hits is still in this game, but the traumatic hit rule in this game is considered an optional rule, whereas technically in Cities Without Number, which is the first time it showed up, not an optional rule in Cities. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I feel like if I'm running this game, I'm pretty much always going to use traumatic hits.
Agreed.
That's just me.
Worth mentioning as well.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning as well. This game takes special note to say that combat in Ashes Without Number is considered brutal, even amongst OSR style games. And it is not uncommon for a character to just get fucked because of a little bit of bad luck. Obviously, yes. The game gives you a lot of like little knobs and switches to sort of dial in just how lethal you want your game to be.
Well, there's literally optional lethality rules.
I was going to say. There's optional lethality rules, and one of them is literally just plot armor. So if you don't want your characters to die, you want your characters to really feel like Mad Max, where only the narrative can take you out, that is an option for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cities Without Number had a similar section where it was basically like, life is rough, you could die real hard, like real quick, real easy, so sort of keep that in mind. I mean, honestly though, if you want to, one simple way, if you want the characters to not be able to die on a dime, is just to take out the traumatic hit rules. Just don't use those, and already that will drastically increase the character's survivability. Because at the beginning of the game, the characters will not be super durable or anything, but by the end of the game, they will get pretty durable. Like, you do still get quite a bit stronger in these games, especially if you take the Die Hard foci, which gives you extra health. It's just like LOL, Lamau.
I thought the traumatic injuries actually increased your sustainability, because rather than just going down and dying, it was like you have a little something.
No. Well, you're confusing two mechanics. So You have traumatic hits, and then you have major injuries.
Oh.
A traumatic hit is when you get hit, and then the damage is multiplied by the trauma damage of the weapon. So you roll the attack, right? You roll the trauma die for the weapon. So like if it's a machine gun or whatever, and well, actually here, let me pull one up real quick. Okay, so you have a rifle. You roll to attack. The trauma die of the rifle is a D8. Let's say your target, their trauma target is 6. If you roll a 7 or an 8 on that trauma die, you then triple your damage against that target.
Oh, got it.
And the rifle rolls a D10 plus 2. So let's say your rifle, you roll a D10 plus 2 and you get like a 6. The target would then take 18 damage instead of 6 damage.
And that will that will drop someone much easier versus
that will drop someone faster.
Will provide a little more sustain by making so they just don't die out.
No, not at all.
No?
No. So the way major injuries work is if your character took a traumatic hit in that round and then they go down, right? Let's say the traumatic hit knocks them, puts them in, what's it called? I forget what the game calls it. Downs them. Then they roll on the major injury table also. And rolling on the major injury table leaves a permanent injury, potentially. Or if you roll a 1 on the major injury table, you just die.
Yeah, you're just taking an L.
Just instant death. So no, major injuries and traumatic hits make your chance of dying more likely. They do not add a buffer at all. Quite the opposite. There are buffers in the game, but yeah. So you could remove the traumatic hit. You could remove the traumatic hits, and you could remove the major injuries if you wanted to. But yeah. So if you took a traumatic hit, but that hit didn't immediately down you, like you take 18 damage, you had 20 HP, you survive, and then the next round you go down, you still take a major injury. Because the traumatic hit doesn't go away until the end of the scene. So, yeah. So like, if you take a traumatic hit, you are in danger. Once one of those lands, you better start sweating. Conversely, though, important thing is, once you land one of them on the opponents, they better start sweating. Then we have a brief little chapter that's examples of combat. Obviously, I'm not going to go through that. They're just, examples. Then we have the optional lethality rules, which are quite literally, they are optional lethality. They are what they say on the tin. They are various rules that you can use to adjust the lethality up and down. So the first one is called the Ordinary Survivors rule, and this makes it so that your character at character creation does not have any edges and does not have any foci. So you start with just less stuff. You're just a normal ass person, even more so than by default. And instead you acquire your edges and foci from adventuring rather than starting with any of them. And the next one you have is the Fragile PCs rule, which is the Fragile PCs rule is you only roll for hit dice, so your health only increases on odd level ups, so every other level. So like level 3 increase your hit dice, level 5, level 7, level 9, not every level. So you're going to have quite a bit less HP. Then we have the Glass PCs rule. This one is really mean. Like, even for me, I was like, damn, bro. So the Glass PC rule, basically, if you take 10 points of damage, you go down.
Yeah, you're just
doesn't matter how much HP you are. You just go down. Mortally wounded. That was the word I was trying. The game being down is called mortally wounded. Yeah, if you take 10 damage, you're down. That's it. End of discussion. You can still take environmental damage and damage from like hazards normally. So you can't be auto down from like 10 points of falling damage, but any kind of attack against you, if it's 10 or more, you're down. That's it. So that one's really brutal. That one is like, you're never going to be getting into fights like ever because the chance of everyone getting murked is so high.
So I was going to ask you this because having not played the game, how often would someone be eating 10 points of damage?
I mean, I don't remember exactly, but if you just look at the damage dice on the weapons in the game, decently real. I mean, like a shotgun 3d4, a rifle is a d10 plus 2, a combat rifle is a d12. Semi-auto combat shotguns are 3d4, sniper rifles 2d8, automatic rifle 2d8. I mean, the bows and the pistols would do between 6 and 8 damage. So those ones are a little less likely to down you, but basically anything more than a pistol, good chance. Good chance. And then melee weapons, pretty much the same deal, other than like a knife or like a spear, probably not, but most of the stuff above that, good chance that they're just taking you out. So it's very much a case of, don't. It's very much a case of do not get involved in this situation. Which again, for me, a little overly mean, I might say, but if you want to run a game like that, it's on the table. I'm trying to find one thing real quick.
I don't feel like I would mind playing in like a, people talk about like D&D hardcore mode or shit like that.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't mind. I just need to really trust the GM, like to understand the balance between brutal and fun, right? Because ideally you want to strike the Dark Souls kind of harsh but fair, but I feel like it's really easy, and it's not even necessarily anyone's fault, but it's really easy to fall into the like, okay, this is just kind of annoying. Like, can you imagine if Sam had really pushed the letter on Avernus when the rules of Avernus are like, it's supposed to suck, it's not supposed to be fun, and you're like, yeah, kinda, but also if you just keep shitting on the players, that's just gonna get fucking
right. I mean, I think that the trick with something like that where 10 damage takes you out. By the way, you also add your skill modifier to your weapon's damage. So if you have like a D8 but you have a +2 to the weapon, you could still do 10 damage.
Oh yeah.
So that's
that is kind of cool. So I was thinking of the whole, because I'm on this weird without number games. I just want to play a sniper. I just want to sit perched on a roof for 3 days and pick some heads off. The rifle does do a good chunk of damage, so that plus your skill mod +2, you're probably going to be almost dropping
plus your
people.
Plus your attribute mod, not your skill mod. But yeah,
I bet, yeah. But if you build a sniper correctly, you're going to be chunking people, which is what you want.
I mean,
right? That's kind of the issue with D&D.
I mean, you don't even need anything. You don't even need anything fancy. The default rules, you're going to be chunking people down with a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
I think the trick though, if you're using something like the glass PCs, ultimately what it comes down to is if the players know that pretty much any combat encounter is incredibly deadly no matter what, like just always, that's always the case, then you as the GM have to be willing to any and all what's the word I'm looking for? Any and all like plans the PCs come up with to get out of a situation, you have to be willing to let them do it. You know what I mean? Like you can't you have to throw out the idea that any fight in the game is mandatory. You just can't have mandatory fights. There needs to be a way out of like every single fight in the game, because if they can die that easily, you can't just assume they're gonna fight no matter what. Like, that's just not a reasonable thing to do. So that's really the trick for me. And yes, I do think there's a lot of GMs that would have a bit of a hard time with that, because I think there's a lot of GMs that come up with the idea for like a boss fight or something like that, and then are not willing to compromise with the players, do some kind of plan to circumvent the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I stand proud saying that I'm not one of those, because as I've said many times on this podcast, the amount of shit my players have done to just be like, yeah, we don't want to fight that. So they will talk, scheme, bribe, or beg their way out of a lot of combats. And yeah, they got them through a lot. Saved them a couple boss fights too.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. You need to be open to that. So after glass PCs, we then have sturdy PCs, which sturdy PCs is really simple. It just guarantees that the players all start with 12 HP plus con mod right from the jump, which is double what they could potentially start with by default, because by default they start with a D6. So they couldn't even, the highest they would get, obviously would be a 6. This, they start with 12 plus con mod, so you just double their starting HP no matter what, and then you begin to add HP like normal. So basically, you just give them that buffer early level so they're sturdier. And then after that, we have the plot armor ability, or the plot armor rule. So the plot armor basically makes it that the characters cannot die unless the player decides to let it happen. Like, ultimately, a PC with plot armor will survive every encounter they come into, any bad situation, they will survive. You as the GM just have to kind of think of a reason, which sometimes could be a little annoying, I'm sure. But yeah, ultimately, you just got to figure it out. And then the players get 2 new abilities. One is called Accept Risk, which as an on-turn action, you can accept risk, and you can re-roll all of your attack, damage, and skill checks that you make in a scene and take the better result. But you become subject to normal death or major injury rules, however, until the end of the scene. The other option, instead of accept risk, the player can accept death as an instant action, where the player character becomes invincible for 1d6 plus 4 rounds. And also you get the best roll on all of your rolls possible. So every attack, damage roll, skill check, everything you do, you treat it as the highest result, and you cannot die for 1d6 plus 4 rounds, but your character is guaranteed to die within the next 24 hours after you do it.
I fucking love this rule.
It's a pretty fun one. Basically, you're like, I'm just gonna go fucking ballistic and have my last hurrah, and then, die bleeding out on the floor like, I fought bravely for the boys.
Yeah, no, yeah. I love any go down swinging rule. Like, that's why I really like the sacrifice rule in Fabula, because it's like, I'm just gonna do something wild.
Yeah,
and the DM's just gonna have to hold this one.
And that's the other thing, right? The DM can't tell you no on this one. If you look at the DM and say, GM, I accept death, then the GM goes, I fucking king shit, here we go.
Yeah. I'm not gonna, if one of my players was like, Dungeon Master, I'd like to accept death, you better believe I'm putting the foam finger on. I am now my player's #1 fan.
Yeah.
Hey, yo, talk to him.
Crazy.
What is he doing? What you doing? Talk to him.
And then lastly, we have the heroic sacrifice rule, which is basically what the rule in Fabula is, where if your character's about to die, you can do one last valiant hurrah, and sort of, subvert the event, win the day, do something to accomplish what you're trying to do, overcome the problem, and then die immediately after. there is a little addition, like a sub rule to the heroic sacrifice where he says, for extra grim settings, there is a 1 in 6 chance the heroic sacrifice turns out to be futile or fails to achieve its end. That's too mean. That one's too much.
Fuck that. Absolutely fuck that.
I know why he put it in there, but that one's like, damn, bro, that's mean as hell.
Yeah, nah. You got me fucked up. I would never do that to my players.
Like, you roll that D6, you see that 1 come up, and it's like, fuck. Like, yeah, I couldn't. That's too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I did think it was funny that he put it there. So yeah, basically you have 3 rules to make the players more vulnerable or 3 rules to make them less vulnerable. Which is good. I like that he added those in there because I'm sure there's certain people that are going to look at this game and be like, damn, players can die really easily. What the fuck? I mean, honestly, just going with the sturdy PC one is such a minor, like, you bump their starting health and it's a very minor overall change, but will definitely be enough to sort of help them push through, you know?
Yeah. A little bit goes a long way in that sense.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there's other rules in the future, or other, like, I'm sure some people say like, oh, I still need more optional, like the lethality stuff I need to adjust more, but these are very good starting points either way. Then we have the section on vehicle combat. So all the vehicle combat is the same stuff that was in Cities Without Number. It's a bit different from Stars, but the same from Cities. There is a little tidbit on mounted combat, which is to say riding like horses or like weird mutated beast creatures. There's nothing super fancy, but basically there's 3 types of mounts. You have an untrained mount, a combat trained mount, or a war beast. An untrained mount, if you get into a fight, you have to make a charisma drive check or charisma ride check to keep the animal, you know, the horse or whatever it is, from like freaking out. And you have to make that check every round while all the fighting is going off. If it is a combat trained animal, you can fight on them normally and that's it. If it is a war beast, they will actually help you to fight. So the war beast gets their own main action on your turn. So you get your main action, they get theirs, and they can potentially attack. And then you have a couple of mounted combat actions you can do where you have mounted attack, mounted charge, mount and dismount, and trample somebody. So if you want to have like your cool, you know, weird mutated animal riding bandits, there you go.
Now that I'm rewatching Trigun, I remember how much I like the Thomas or the Tomas, as they say in fucking Stampede. The big fucking chocobo looking things.
Yes, yeah.
Like the big ostriches. I kind of love those.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Kind of like the idea of being just like a roving like hunter character
ostrich gang.
Just like a big just like a dude. You're like, oh wait, well, you know, me and my valiant steed. Nah, me and my war ostrich.
It's very it's very chocobo.
Everyone talks shit until the emo kicks their fucking head in. That would have to be it. If you were doing Mad Max, it's like, yes, what's more dangerous than a car? The emus.
The emus. Then after that, we have the the chase rules, chase and pursuit. Again, same shebang from Cities Without Number. And then we get into injury and healing, which is all basically the same. There is an optional rule for first aid in the injuries and healing section because obviously you are less likely to have magical, psychic, or high-tech healing in this game. So there is some first aid rules. Technically, the first aid rules are optional. I see absolutely no reason why you wouldn't use them. Feels like a weird one to call optional, but
yeah,
it is. So whatever. But other than that, mortal wounds, stabilizing, natural healing, poisons, and system strain. That's all the same Same kit and caboodle. Your characters still heal quite slowly in this game. You just get your character level in hit points every morning, which means at level 1 you get 1 HP a night. Then we have the major injuries table, which, like I was saying before, if you take a traumatic hit and you go down to 0, you take a major injury and then you roll on the table. If you roll a 1, your character instantly dies from the major injury. The rest of them are all varying degrees of unfortunate bad things. And then if you roll an 11 or 12, you're actually fine. Nothing happened. Which is funny, by the way, statistically, the flesh wound one is the highest probability.
Oh yeah, because it's 2.
It's 11 or 12. Yeah. Whereas all the other ones are just one number. So you're actually it's not that high of a percentage, but you are statistically more likely to just get a flesh wound. Then we start with diseases, and this basically starts the section of the survival rules. The survival rules are they're not all labeled, strictly speaking, as optional, but if you read through the section, they're all basically described as optional. So if you just don't want to deal with one or the other or whatever, you totally can, and taking any of them out is not going to upend the game that much, with the exception of maybe the food and water stuff. But diseases, radiation, stress, and all that, you could definitely just ignore if you really just do not want to deal with them.
Worth mentioning is that within the rules of them, it specifically says, if you're not dealing with after the fall one, radiation might not matter. If you're not dealing with the zombie plague, disease might not matter. So it even goes beyond to say you can just ignore this if it doesn't fit your game.
Yes, so that's what I mean, where the survival rules are they're not all strictly labeled straight up as optional, but they very much are built in an optional fashion. They can slot in and out pretty seamlessly. So the first one is disease. Essentially, mechanically speaking, the way this works is based on... Is that a typo? Wait, hold on. GM rolls a die and result 1d4. GM should be able to... Find out what threatens them every day and infected swamp every day. Wait, what? A disease check is made under the circumstances below. The GM rolls a die. Is that a typo? What is going on there?
I don't think so.
A disease check is made under the circumstances listed below. The GM rolls a die, and if the result is 1 on 1d4, if the result is a 1, 1d4. Oh, I see. 1d4 of the yes. Okay,
and then can get infected.
Yes, and then the result of a 1 on any of these other situations. Yeah, okay. I just was completely... I don't know why that read so weird for a second there. Anyway, yeah. So basically the way it works is you roll a die based on the scenario they're in, and there's a couple of example scenarios, such as wandering around in the wilderness or drinking untreated water. You roll a die. If you roll a 1 on the die, then 1d4 of the PCs have been diseased. And then you as the GM say, okay, they're diseased, and then the players get to make a physical save to try and resist said disease. They take a -4 penalty if they're hungry or thirsty or have a problem with exposure. If they succeed, they take some system strain, but they're not infected. If they fail, they become infected. If they become infected, you then decide if it's either a mild disease, a severe disease, or a lethal disease. Which they all have slightly different effects. The mild one, you can't recover system strain. The severe one, you can't recover system strain. Also, if you take system strain that puts you over your max, you have to make a physical save or die. And then a lethal disease, if your system strain is maxed, you will die if you get any more. You're incapacitated and unable to even feed yourself. Basically, you're just fucking taken out. Then you would roll 2d6 to determine the duration of the disease. Then the players make a physical save. The player in question makes a physical saving throw again. If they succeed, the disease is downgraded. If they only had a mild disease, then they fight it off and they're good. You can also get medical intervention from a character with the heal skill, or if a character has antibiotics or a medical kit, antibiotics that you re-roll on the diseases. And yeah, basically that's it. Your character is debilitated in some fashion for a certain number of days based on the 2d6 roll, which, boy, if you roll 12 on that one, that is fucking rough, bud.
So actually, I had a question on this.
Uh-huh.
So it says, for severe and lethal, 2d6, if it's failed twice, you die in 1d4 days.
Yeah.
Do you still have those 1 to 4 days to try to cure yourself, or do you just have to sit with the dying character for 1d4? Is there anything you can do? Like once you're in that dying status?
This is one of those scenarios where I think the intention is kind of follow the fiction. If there's no reasonable way that the player could be saved, then yeah, you're probably just fucked. If there is some sort of medical intervention justification where you could be cured, then probably allow it, But if you get the lethal disease, I mean, especially if you look at the examples of lethal disease, pneumatic plague, Ebola, it's like, yeah, I think if the characters are in a situation where they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, not in town or something like that, and you get you fail the lethal disease roll, yeah, you're probably just fucked. If you're in the high tech city where there's a guy who has the hyperbolic or not what's the vat they sit in Dragon Ball? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, the recovery tank. Yeah.
Yeah, if they have one of those, then
totally maybe back to tank.
Yeah, the back to tank. Right. If you have a back to tank, then the GM could probably be like, all right, yeah, sure. But otherwise, yeah. So I think it's just a follow the fiction kind of thing. Then we have radiation, which is a fun one. Basically, if you go into an irradiated zone, you have to make physical saves every X number of time. The time being based on how many saves you're making being based on how bad the radiation is. So if you're in a mildly irradiated place, you'd be making a save once a day. If you're near a nuclear impact point, it'd be once an hour. If you're near an unshielded radiation source, once a minute. And if you're near a strong unshielded radiation source, it'd be once a round, which would be 6 seconds. Basically, if you're playing around the radiation, on a successful save, you gain 1d4 system strain. If this pushes you above your maximum, you fail the saving throw. And when you fail the saving throw, you lose 1d6 points of your constitution and start to feel like shit and get nauseous and blah, blah, blah. If your constitution drops below 3, your ass is grass. You are dead in 3d12 hours. Actually, here's a good example of what I was talking about, Isaiah. The player may feel relatively fine during this period, but they will inevitably collapse and die unless treated with TL4 medical care or other super science anti-radioactive medicines. So it's that kind of a thing, right?
So that is actually why I asked, because that's where it
doesn't say that
you're
for
dead,
disease.
Except maybe not. Right. So I was like, does that transfer back up to the disease? Or...
It's true. It doesn't specifically say it for disease, but
I just don't see why not.
Fine.
Yeah.
No, there's no reason why not. I don't. Yeah. I mean, does it say it can help powerful ones need the medication applied to a number of patients? Or... Yeah, it doesn't explicitly say it that way in the medical intervention bit for diseases, but I see no reason to say it wouldn't apply. And I'm pretty sure in the TL4 equipment. I'm pretty sure in Stars Without Number, there is a back to tank. Not called that, but there is a back to tank equivalent. So, yeah. And then as a fun little optional rule, if your players are dealing with radiation, you can also have them potentially get mutated from the radiation. Where if they roll a natural 20, they gain a positive mutation. And if they roll a natural 1, they gain a negative mutation. So, yeah, that's a fun one you could throw in there if you want to. I feel like if you're doing radiation, you should throw in the mutations.
Yeah, mutations.
Yeah.
Then you have idiots like me straight out here mutation maxing. It's like, I'm just going to sit right at the edge of this until I get another one.
Just going to go, I'm going to go in and out of the edge of the radiation zone. I'm just going to, every day, guys, I'm going to make a pilgrimage to the radiation zone.
I'm here to get powers or die trying, god damn it.
Yeah, or die. Yeah, and it is worth pointing out that because of the way the radiation rules are set up, basically if you spend too long in there, you are guaranteed to die. Like, eventually, you will just die from the radiation no matter what. Because even if you keep succeeding, you take system strain, and then once your system strain caps out, you automatically fail to save, which means your constitution starts going down. You will eventually just die. So you can't just like hang out in the radiation zone unless there's some sort of, weird justification for it.
Pack you some iodine pills and get the fuck out of there.
Yeah. Then we have the rules for stress. This one specifically does say is not really intended for a Mutant Wasteland campaign, because if you think about like the Mad Max vibe, the stress thing doesn't really fit thematically because those characters in that kind of a setting are already used to the fucked up world around them, right? But in the Deadlands and the After the Fall situation, you're dealing with normal people who have ended up in a bad situation, so that's where the stress mechanic is more likely to be used.
This is one of the only games where I've ever seen the like kind of insanity, stress, mental breakdown mechanics I think are done well.
I knew you were going to say that.
Really annoying and just serve to piss me off.
Literally,
but I like that this one is not just you're just a stark raving fucking idiot now. It's like, no, I mean, like that could be one of the things you do, but like,
yes,
it gives you your own personal choice over your kind of crazy.
Pretty much, yeah. I as I was reading through the stress mechanics, I was like, oh, Isaiah's gonna like these.
Yes, and my only problem is like
it addresses your biggest peeve. So.
Yes, I mean, taking away the agency of it, yeah. That
and the hardened rule was the other thing I was thinking of.
Yes. The one thing that I do wish is they're like, oh, well, once you're hardened, you can't go back. Except, like, maybe you could, but probably... Maybe I know it's the whole play it by ear.
Yes.
But I wish there were rules for, like, rolling to resist your hardened trait. Like in my head, I created a scenario where you'd have the bloodthirsty one, and maybe you're fighting like child soldiers or something. And with bloodthirsty, you're like, sorry, kid, sucks to suck, loser. But I don't know, something interesting to being like, no, that's a kid. Don't do that. You know what I mean? But rules is written, it's kind of just like
well, here's the thing, though. Also, given the way that the without numbers games function on a broad scale, if you as a player looked at me and said, all right, I have the bloodthirsty trait, but can I resist the urge to like kill these children? And then you could be like, yeah, give me a mental save. You know what I mean?
True enough.
Right? Like that's in the spirit. That is what the game wants you to do, is look at those scenarios and go, okay, there's probably a rule that I can slap on here that will work and cover what I need. So in that case, I would just say to you, give me a mental save. And I might even say you have a +2 bonus to the roll, because even though your character is bloodthirsty, it is kind of a step above to be bloodthirsty about children. Right? So like, yeah, that's what I would say in that scenario, if like I were GMing that situation. Yeah, so the stress rules...
just know if you fail... You're about to say fuck them kids.
yes, right. Well, that's the thing, right? Yeah, if you fail, fuck them kids. Absolutely.
Or blam.
So the situation, so stress, basically, there's a big list of things that can cause players to gain stress, right? Killing another person, a friend gets mortally wounded, you get mortally wounded, you steal something from somebody who's not an enemy. And there's also modifiers. The one that I really like here is the one where it says killing another person, you gain 2 stress. If it's your first kill, add 1d6 to your stress. I like that. That's a good touch.
That is a good one, yeah.
But yeah, basically, if the group, now technically the stress rules, the way it reads is every PC involved in the act gains the stress. I personally would be willing to like adjust that a little bit based on the fictional scenario, you know, like I might say, even though everybody was present for this scene, this is really only on this one character, so I'm not going to make everyone else gain the stress, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But technically, rules is written, it says every PC involved in the act gains 1 or more points of stress at the end of the scene. Another important point, by the way, all the stress rules are at the end of a scene, which means the bad shit happens in a fight or whatever, but it doesn't fuck you over in that fight, right? Because it all culminates at the end of a scene. So it's not going to mess with you right that second, which I think is a very good way to kind of mediate the issue a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
But basically, the players acquire stress for various reasons. There's a table that will, you know, I was going to say big, but it's not that big of a table, but there's a table that tells you, you know, this is things that players can gain stress from. Obviously, the game also says you as the GM might also apply stress for other reasons that are like contrary to what the players are doing or contrary to the players' morals or whatever. But it does say if the PCs are doing something that you as the GM think is stress worthy, to warn them before they do it. Like, yes, you can do that, but you will gain stress, right? Always give them that fair warning. Essentially, like when the video game says, hey, you can steal that item, but you're stealing, right? Like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's actions that will reduce stress. The one that I really like here, so the first 3 are like spending a day in a safe, familiar place. Yep, makes sense. An evening of like heavy drinking and eating. Yep, okay, sure, that reduces stress. Once per day, talk to a friend for an hour and then make a roll to see how well it helps you. And then you can make you make a roll from them helping you, and then that reduces your stress. So basically having like friends and companions around you helps, which makes sense. But the one I really like is accomplish a major personal goal or community purpose, justifying the suffering. This must be a task at least one adventure to accomplish, but it can subtract 1d10 worth of stress, which is quite a lot. I like that one a lot because it means that if you do a big thing, you can get like a big payoff for it, you know?
Right.
You could also roll a 1 on that D10, which is a little shitty.
That's kind of.
I might personally throw a modifier on that to make like a minimum -3 or something, you know, like 1d10 -2 or something like that, or +2, I guess.
Yeah. Because right. So to the point of,
you could roll a 1.
You could roll a 1, and that would really fuck you. And I know that's kind of in the spirit, but I don't know. I feel like a little bit of OSR being old school is like I think you have to hit it with a little bit of contemporary know-how.
I think it would depend on the action, right? What major thing did they like? If they killed the bandit leader and freed the entire town, I'm not going to let you roll a 1 on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in my head, I was thinking of The Last of Us, like, you know, you've killed all these people in the hospital, but you saved Ellie. Spoilers. And yeah, right. I see no reason why you'd be like, nah, I'm sorry, man. That's just kind of how the rules are. Like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah, I might add a little modifier, but it depends. So that's how losing stress works. But you might say, all right, so what happens when you cap out your stress? So your character can take as many points of stress as your wisdom score. So if you have a wisdom score of 13, you can take 13 points of stress. Once you cap out, you have a breakdown, or you can have a breakdown technically. Once you cap out, what you do is you make a mental saving throw, and at a -2 penalty at the end of the scene in which you gain the stress. So you start at a -2 penalty. If you succeed the mental save, you keep your shit together. You might be a little, you know, a little shaky, a little fucked up the day after, but you keep your shit together. You don't break down. Until you bring your stress down to equal or less than your wisdom score, however, each additional breakdown check adds a further -2 save penalty. Thus, the next one will be -4, then -6, so on and so forth. So eventually, either you got to lower your stress or you're just going to crack. If you fail, you undergo a breakdown. And a breakdown basically kind of takes you out of the scene. You can't gain any more stress, and your breakdown ends when your stress is reduced to equal or lower than your wisdom score. So like if your wisdom score is 13 and it bumps up to and you take stress and you go up to a 14, you have to bring it back down to a 13 to stop your breakdown. While you're having your breakdown, there's a couple of options, but basically all of them kind of take you off the table a little bit in different ways. Not 100%. You don't like lose complete control of your character. You don't like lose all agency or anything. But like, for example, the top one is Death Wish. You become negligent of your own life. You cannot willingly retreat from combat, and your max HP total is decreased by 2 points per character level due to your recklessness to a minimum of 1 HP. So like, you could still act completely normally, but your chance of dying is way higher. And then there's another one like Cowardice, where you cannot fight and you'll flee and hide from any combat. You'll do anything you can to avoid danger. But the really fun rule, this is the one I really like, is anytime you would suffer a breakdown, you can instead choose to become hardened, which is basically you get to that moment of a breakdown and instead you say, fuck it, we ball. You kind of throw away your morals a little bit. You become a little bit of a shittier person, but you become hardened to the situation. Your stress immediately drops to 0. You ignore the first point of stress that you would normally gain in future scenes. And then you gain a psychic scar. Technically you as the player choose the psychic scar. I should specify. That's really important here. You pick which hardened scar you have, not the GM. Also, you can just become hardened over and over and over again, to the point where you'll basically take no stress at all, but you turn into like just a horrible monster of a person. Couple of the ones that are a couple of example hardened options is like self-destructive. You've seen a lot of people die. You know your turn is coming and maybe you deserve it. Your hit die takes a -2 penalty to a minimum of 1 point per die. Your current maximum HP decreases by 2 points per character level. But then there's ones like Bloodthirsty, where leaving enemies behind you is sure to get you killed, so you make sure that doesn't happen. You cannot fight non-lethally and will kill any person or surrendered foe if left alone with them. You don't gain any stress from killing people, but any form of stress recovery has a flat 50% chance of not working at all. So,
yeah, if you do the multiple hardens, yeah, you just turn into Joel.
Yeah, you turn into a real. You can, if you just keep going, you can turn into a real fucked up son of a bitch. Technically, rules as written, kind of what Isaiah was talking about before. Once you're hardened, you can't go back. You can't remove a harden. But the game is basically like, you might be able to remove your psychic scars with a lot of time and security and safety and calm, but given that you're dealing with a post-apocalyptic campaign, it's unlikely that you will find that kind of safety, but if you can, then maybe you can remove those scars.
It seems like your best bet for actually having it removed is one of those, like, we've accomplished a mission, we're gonna, our characters are gonna go on some sort of extended
vacation.
Vacation, yeah. It's like, you found like a haven where there's water and food, so your characters just kind of like chill out for a couple months in like the relative safety until shit eventually gets fucked again.
Yeah. But one of the options under hardened is you can get addicted. So how about some addiction rules?
Oh boy.
This one's a little, I was kind of surprised he put this in here at all, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised. But I also kind of get why it's there. So, basically, in terms of becoming addicted, it's up to the player, right? If your player's constantly drinking and you want to be like, all right, my character's an alcoholic, ultimately that is up to the player if they want their character to do it. So it's not something that it's never something the GM can be like, you're addicted now.
Thank God.
The GM can insist, right? So it says the GM may insist on a habit if the PC constantly uses a drug, but normally it's up to the player as to whether or not their character takes permanent refuge and chemical relief. So like the GM might make a comment like, wow, your character's drinking a lot, but they can't decide. Or your character might be like, or your GM might be like, wow, you're going to the brothel a lot, bud. So once you choose to make your character addicted, you have to spend at least an hour with your indulgence of some, whatever your indulgence is. You have to spend at least an hour with it. And you can fight in self-defense if you're interrupted during your indulgence, but you're otherwise useless. So like if you're going on a bender, you're taken out of the action for an hour because you're going on a bender or whatever. Although if you're going on an alcohol bender, really it would be more than an hour, but whatever. Game rules.
It's fine. 20-minute adventure.
20-minute adventure. You can choose to kick it at any point and try and become sober. If you don't indulge, you cannot recover system strain, hit points, or other resources with a night's rest, and you gain a point of stress from the lack of your indulgence that is not negated by hardening or other sources of stress resistance. So basically, if you try and kick it, you're going to go through like withdrawal issues. If you are currently in the addiction and partaking in whatever it is, each addiction decreases any incoming stress by a point and automatically eliminates 1d4 of stress each day when you're indulging in said addiction. Multiple addictions can provide stacking benefits.
That's so
but it comes
funny.
at a cost.
I didn't read that.
Yeah. But it comes at a cost. After each month of addiction, the PC must make a physical save. On a fail, you gain a point of system strain that can't be lost while you're still addicted. If this puts you over the max, if this would put you over the max, they have a month to get clean or die.
They just OD? Oh my God.
You can just OD. If you want to break your addiction.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of skipped this
bit
reasons.
Yeah.
So I didn't really notice that, but that is kind of crazy. Although I don't know how you're going to OD on, if you got like a sex addiction, I don't know how that works. Yeah.
I mean, I guess
you just run it till your heart stops.
Yeah, your heart gives out, or I guess you would say like, maybe you pick up a hooker who like kills you for money or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah. I don't know. I kind of I'm just running it till the wheels come off, baby.
Right. Important, and then once you break you can break it. So if you want to get clean, you have to avoid your addiction and suffer all the daily penalties of the sobriety. After a week of denial, you then make a physical or mental save to shed the addiction. If attended by someone, they can add the medic's heal skill to their saving throw. So like you can get assistance, and once you've done it for a week, you can break it. Again, the really important thing about the whole addiction system is that like it's entirely on the player if they want to take it and what they want to do with it. And if they find it annoying to just be like, all right, I'm just going to fuck it, go sober now, So it's about as generous and reasonable as you could make that kind of a rule. And then after addictions, which this is kind of a funny jump, but we get to tracking. Tracking is nothing fancy. Basically, you make wisdom survival checks and examine the area to try and track down your target. There's a table of difficulty levels, that you have to DCs that you have to beat, and then there's modifiers that will affect it. Like if the trackers have trained dogs on you and you're trying to get away, like they get a bonus. If the person is trying to hide their skill or trying to hide their trail, they can add their skill level to the tracking difficulty, stuff like that. The tracking thing's pretty straightforward. And then there's overland travel and scouting. Basically, this game's going to assume it's a sandbox game. It assumes you move on a hex grid. When you're moving around, you have two modes of transportation. You're either exposed or stealthy. Exposed basically just meaning you're moving at like a reasonable pace and not trying to like hide what you're doing or where you're going. You have rules for a travel day and stuff. I'm glazing over a lot of this because this is the kind of minutia that can get boring to talk about. But you have a travel day, it takes a certain amount of time. You choose whether you're moving stealthy or moving not. The GM will make encounter rolls for travel encounters. Generally, it's a D8. And then if they roll a 1 on the D8, something happens. You can, of course, adjust that if you feel like, there's a reason that there might be more or less encounters. Then there's some rules that dictate what happens when you get into the encounter, if the two parties can see each other, if there's a surprise situation, if you're traveling exposed and you get into an encounter, like the GM rolls an encounter, you're always going to be seen first because you're moving exposed, quote unquote. And then dangerous terrain may make the encounter die smaller. Ergo, the D8 could become a D6 if it's a really dangerous place, or a D4 if it's like filled with mutant cannibals or some shit. And then there's some rules about travel times and stuff. The one thing about the travel rules that I think is kind of interesting is there's also scouting, where basically you can go to a terrain hex and spend time scouting said terrain hex. And if you do scout that area, then you can't go astray. There's a rule called going astray, which basically just means you get lost and you have to take like a detour, which if you go astray, you can either spend 5 hours trying to get your shit together and figure out the correct path, or you can scout out the whole you can scout out that hex of the map and be like, all right, well, now we know where we're at. But the scouting rule is basically like, we're going to scout ahead so we know where we're going. Also, it mentions that if players buy or trade maps or get details from an NPC, that can count as a scout. And then there's a brief section on rules for traveling with water. And then we get to the hunger, thirst, and supplies. I'm gonna be for real. This is the kind of thing that's only interesting when you're actively using it in a game. So I'm not gonna go through the hunger, thirst, and supplies rules.
It just describes
how much water you need, how much food you need,
how
all
much
that
water,
shit.
food you need, how much shelter you need to find, how much it weighs. If you have animals, how much you have to give them. If you got vehicles, how much
much
space
storage
you can load into it. Yeah. Really not a whole lot to talk about.
Pack animal encumbrance, rules for making a fire.
Yeah, and then you get to like foraging, very nitty gritty shit. It is cool to read, but not very cool to talk about.
It's not exciting to like explain, but just for the sake of, if you're interested in this game and you're like, does it have rules for like surviving with water and food and shelter? Yes, all those rules are there. There's the food, there's the hunger, thirst, and supplies stuff, and then there's rules for the foraging stuff, which basically, foraging ultimately comes down to making a series of rolls where the DC adjusts based on the kind of place you're in, right? So if you're in an industrial zone or a city center, the difficulty is easier. If you're in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, the difficulty is really hard because there's not a lot of food or whatever, right? That kind of a vibe. It's most of the stuff you would expect from rules like these, which is the other reason I'm not going into it. But yeah. Again, it makes it sound like I'm saying it's boring. It's not that it's boring. It's just, it's only interesting to use this kind of stuff in context.
A little funny thing to note. So did you, not related to this, but kind of related, did you watch XP Level 3's video on the Fallout system he made?
I have not, no.
Okay, so Jacob loves this shit.
Uh-huh.
And they kind of did it like almost like a The Office vibe, where they do like cutaway bits where it'll be like an interview where like they're like one of the characters is talking, and there's a bit where Spencer's like, I knew he did it. I knew he added this system because I've been sort of watching him passively build this system for the last couple months to years now. But man, I really wasn't sure how much he wanted us to do it, and he was very excited about making us scavenge for food. And it cuts to Jacob being like, I built the system. I built it for a reason. If I had my way, I would do this all the time. This would just be what the games are. He's just going on like a psychotic rant about how cool survival mechanics are.
Honestly, that sounds
really on brand for Jacob. Yeah,
basically. Yeah, very on brand. So, yep, checks out.
I just love that. I didn't know we were going to do it that much. We're doing it a lot. And he's like, you better believe we're doing it a lot.
You better believe it. You're going to find some fucking food. Yeah. So yes, this game will absolutely, I will say for me personally, the way the without number, because all the without number games have had some variation of this kind of thing. It is a little overly minutia for me personally. I would not, if I were making my own system and I wanted to have this kind of hunger, thirst, food scavenging situation, I definitely would abstract it more than this. This is already pretty abstract, but I would abstract it another level because for me, it's less about the minutia of the numbers and do we have X, Y, or Z of what we need, and it's more about the drama of making sure we have food and stuff, you know what I mean? So for me, I would just abstract it further, probably condense the numbers down more, like food and water wouldn't be separate numbers, for example. Because for me, it's more about watching, oh, our supply number is ticking down. Oh shit, we're running low on stuff. The drama of that is the more important element.
Agreed. But
also, you're not going to use this all the time.
Right, yeah. I just said agreed, but I'm also like, I kind of like the
minutia.
The minutia a little bit because something that I liked about Hellscapes, not that it actually fucking extrapolated on this well enough, but something I really liked is that they had that distinction that you used, like, you could use food for bait. Not that there was any rules for it other than saying that you could do it. Or, like, you can use water to clean wounds. Again, not that they talk about it. So the idea was like, oh, well, we have all this water that we have, and we can trade that water for other things, and the food we can use. And the idea being like, I need more water to like make alcohol or whatever, and someone being like, oh, well, I need more food to feed my horse. So I do kind of like that. It
can have its like, it can be fun if it's really the big thing that you're focusing on, like that idea of like the story is the surviving in that scenario, then it can be fun. But if you're trying to also tell some kind of heroic journey across the waste to save the town kind of thing, it can get in the way, you know what I mean? So it sort of depends on where your focus is, what you want your focus to be on.
True. Very true.
And also, again, like I was saying with the modularity of this whole game, you could ignore this shit so easy.
You can, yeah.
Like, you could throw all the food, water, shelter shit completely out the window if you want. Then it goes on to character advancement, which is kind of it feels like a slightly weird place. Advancement works exactly the same as every other game. Improve your hit points, your attack bonus, your saving throws, your attributes, your skills, pick your foci and edges, blah, blah, blah. All the same shebang, Kit Kat and Boodle. And then we have there's a little section of common GM complications, which is just kind of an advice section talking about some issues you might run into with the game, such as forgetting the rules or like your players going off the map, because this is a sandbox game, but even in the sandbox, the players could try to jump around past the borders. And just, advice on how to handle that. And then you get the big section on mixing all of the Sin Nomine games together. Choose your base game, and then, what are you going to add using other creatures, using other classes, using optional rules, money and gear and cyberware, right? Like Stars Without Number and Cities Without Number have a shitload of cybernetics. If you're playing Ashes, how do you bring cybernetics into the situation? Right? Stuff like that. It does specifically call out, and I like that it mentions this. The games are designed to work together, right? But there are certain elements of the games that will be difficult mixing and matching 100%. Like Cities Without Number and Ashes Without Number don't use classes, right? They have the edge system. So trying to bring in the classes from the other systems and turn them into edges or make them cooperate with the edges might be a little awkward. So just be aware that although you definitely can smash them together, there might be some pain points. But, you know, that's kind of to be expected because the design has advanced and changed a little bit over time. There's also advice on using other OSR games based on, and I find this very funny because it says, if a game bills itself as being completely compatible with the early edition of the world's most famous fantasy RPG, you can probably strip it for parts. I like that he did not say D&D.
Yes.
The world's most famous fantasy RPG. I wonder what I'm talking about. Just thought that was kind of amusing.
It is a bit.
But yes, he also mentions throwing other old school OSR stuff into this game, which is a thing he's been talking about since Stars Without Number. And then we get to equipment. Holy hot diggity dog. Holy fuck-oly McGoly. This Without Numbers game, all the Without Numbers games have quite a lot of equipment. This one, the equipment is fucking stacked.
Yeah, it is dense.
Holy shit. Yeah, I'm sure you do. For me, it actually pushed into the too dense territory. I understand that you're not going to use all of it all the time, which is why it's all right, but wowie zowie.
Wow. So to go a step further, not only are you not going to use some of the time, you're not going to use most of it most of the time, right? Like,
right.
If you're dealing with the zombie apocalypse, you're not going to be using high-tech weaponry like a black hole gun or the neutron blaster, right? You can sort of treat the gear list as broken up into the specific campaigns that you are doing, and they typically won't stray from that.
It is, but it can also, because you can kind of mix and match them between each other, it can, the potential for messiness is there.
It is, yeah. I mean, maybe, I don't know if it has this, but maybe the equipment section should come with like a steady your hand adventure before you do some weird shit.
I did not see anything that says that, but a valid point. It might say that somewhere. It starts off the equipment section talking about money and trade and like basically how you want to think about how does money and trade work, because this is a post-apocalypse, right? Basically, there's different scenarios and different ways you can look at it, and just, you know, GM make a plan. Is what it ultimately boils down to. And then it does talk a little bit about sci-fi gear. By default, the equipment in this chapter is largely meant for a near future campaign where technology is similar to our own. Some campaigns, however, need a more expansive gear list. So there is sci-fi gear in the equipment chapter. If you think about Fallout, right? Fallout has laser guns and power armor and all that, robots and all that bullshit. So if you want to do the Fallout stuff, the sci-fi gear is in here. Then it gets into how the encumbrance and like tracking your gear works. The encumbrance and stuff works the way it's worked in all the other Without Number games, which I have praised many times, but basically you can carry a certain amount of stowed items and readied items. An item takes up a certain amount of encumbrance points. So if you have 10 points of encumbrance, you pick up a gun. The gun costs 1 point of encumbrance. Now you have 9 left over. It's, you know, it's basic stuff like that. It's the load of an item is a combination of the weight and the size of the thing. It's not just pounds like in 5e, which still to this day drives me fucking insane. And then there's some rules about dragging down to allies and how that interacts with the encumbrance rules, which I thought was kind of funny that he specifically called it out. And then there's an optional rule for packs and pockets. And like, absolutely not. Get the fuck out of here with this shit. Did you read this a little bit?
I didn't. I did not.
It's basically, so you mark down your gear containers on your sheet. You have pockets, body, and belt container for small objects, slung gear, and holsters, and a hands containers for things in your hand. You might have a backpack container or a rolling suitcase container or a garbage bag over my shoulder container or whatever else you can haul gear in. Backpacks and other sturdy bags count as their own stowed encumbrance. When you pick something up, write it down under the container you're using to hold it. Basically, it adds a bunch of equipment slots to your character, and then you have to like minutia track what items you're storing in what equipment slots and how many of that thing you can reasonably hold.
I kind of like that though.
It's too much minutia for me. I don't fuck with it. Basically, it says for campaigns where groups want extra granularity, they can use the following packs and pockets rules. With this rule, it becomes considerably more important for the PCs to actually have transport gear such as backpacks or slings, and ready items have to be in a plausibly accessible place. A gun slung over your shoulder or holstered on your belt could be plausibly ready, but one stuck in your backpack couldn't be reasonably drawn. So like that kind of vibe. It's not it could be worse, but it's still, for me, I think the stowed and readied system already does that plenty fine, so I don't see the need to get more granular than the stowed and readied system, you know?
Right, yeah, fair enough.
Then we have tech levels and scrap. So the tech level stuff is the same as the tech levels from Stars Without Number, where it goes from 0 to 5. Although actually Stars Without Number I think goes to 6, but it goes from 0 to 5, and basically it's like 0 is stone tools and like Neolithic wood implements, and then 5 is ultra advanced mysterious technology. 4 being kind of where Fallout falls, where it's interstellar sci-fi tech, right? That's kind of TL4. That's kind of the Fallout vibe. And then there's some explanation of what kind of communities could reasonably have the various levels of technology. So an organized modern-day survivors with basic tools and or advanced post-apocalyptic societies would be like tech level 2, which is to say steam power, guns, Victorian tech, that kind of thing. Then you have rules, there's like salvaging rules and scrap rules, which again has been in all the other Without Number games, but basically you get points of scrap based on the tech level of the thing. So you have like, I have 3 points of tech level 3 scrap, and you can build things that fall under tech level 3 using the tech level 3 scrap. You cannot use different tech levels for upper or lower stuff. You know what I mean? You can't use like tech level 3 stuff to upgrade your tech level 1 knife or some shit. But you can also break items down and use items for repair and use items for various things. Like you can also forage for really primitive stuff. And then we have damage and repairing on gear. For Mutant Waste, this game, basically it says for the Mutant Wasteland, these rules are often suitable to have like damage and repair gear, where advanced ancient tech has a problem of breaking down and like, you know, people try to keep it running. If you're dealing with After the Fall or Deadlands, it's less plausible that gear would start degrading so rapidly, so you're probably less likely to use it. Basically, gear is rated from a perfect condition to a ruined condition. There are various penalties along the way going from perfect to ruined. Once it hits ruined, the gear piece is completely gone. Can't do anything, can't fix it, yada yada. Gear can be damaged, so if you're attacking with a weapon, gear can be damaged on a roll of a 1 or a 2. If you're being attacked, armor can be damaged on a 19 or a 20. From the opponent hitting you, rolling a 19 or 20. Basically, if they crit against you. And then if you're rolling a skill check, a result of a 2 or a 3 could potentially damage equipment you're using for the skill check. And then you need to have, to repair gear, you need to have an appropriate skill level. Generally, it's going to be the fix skill, but something that has carried through all the Without Number games, if you have a skill that's like related but not explicitly the fixed skill. So for example, if you have level 2 in shoot and you're going to repair a gun, you can use your shoot skill to reasonably repair the gun, because the shoot skill, all of the skills imply that you are able to do the thing, but also you have knowledge of the thing. Right. And yeah, basically you make a roll to try and repair it. The difficulty is 5 plus the item's tech level. You need to have scrap to repair the gear, and then you can bump it up, you know, a stage of damage. Excuse me, 1 second. There's also a little loot. There's like a little loot condition table if the GM decides that they want to have loot be picked up at varying levels of damage. So you can roll a little D10. Yep, that's what I was about to say. A D10 to see how well the piece of gear is as soon as they pick it up. And then we get into all the building and the crafting and the modifying of the gear, which again has been in all the games. So I'm going to roll past this bad boy. But if you are the kind of person that wants to be the tinkerer character and modify and maintain a bunch of gear and like upgrade all of your friends' gear, oh baby, this game's got you covered. Don't you worry.
Oh hell yeah, I feel so seen.
There's all the mods, modifications to weapons and armor, and you can build stuff out of just wholesale. You can also build entire vehicles. There's rules for building a vehicle, both taking a broken down vehicle and fixing it to usability, or building a vehicle from nothing. So yeah. Then we start getting into the actual gear itself. So it starts with armor, and then it goes range weapons, and then melee weapons, and then high tech, and then heavy weapons. There's nothing to say, much like with the foraging and the food and all that. Not interesting until you're actively looking at it and interacting with it yourself, right? So I'm not going to read off gear or anything because that's boring as hell. But if you're the kind of person like Isaiah who likes a big meaty gear list to choose weapons and armor from, they got you covered, bud.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
I am absolutely the loser to play the sniper character and then pick out gear so I could like set my every little perimeter up with claymore mines and make sure I've got like a range finder and days worth of water because I'm gonna sit on that roof like an asshole waiting for my quarry to come.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this has been the case since Stars Without Number, but the gear lists in the Without Number games are always long and quite thorough. So, yeah.
Have I ever told you? This just reminds me. Have I ever told you there's a YouTuber I don't follow him, but I'm like aware of him, the ex-army sniper, and he just does videos about like shooting and whatnot. And one of his jokes is like, okay, set distancing, maintaining wind. All right, account for Coriolis. And he looks at the camera and he goes, always account for Coriolis. And then he'll take the shot.
Okay.
Just the idea of like, always account for the Coriolis effects.
I don't know about always. There's probably some shorter distances where that's not true, but all right.
No, yeah, absolutely. But if you're a long range precision sniper, yeah, you got to account for Coriolis. Planet.
Yeah, so armor, weapons, guns, and knives and swords and all that fun shit and grenades, all that good stuff is in there. And then when you get into the high-tech weaponry of laser pistols and blackout rifles and heavy cutters and mag pistols and thermal pistol and fucking whip beams and all that crap. And then there's heavy weaponry, which is like demo charges, grenade launcher, mortars, rocket launchers, rail guns, you know, the fun stuff. And then after all the gear, you also have all the modifications you can make to the gear, which can be, you know, for example, increasing your armor's trauma target, increasing the armor's AC, to making the armor go from obvious to subtle, which the obvious to subtle thing is if you're sneaking around, if it's clear that you're wearing armor or not. You know, like NPCs see you if they can tell you're wearing armor or not. And much like, I think he started doing this with Worlds. I think he started doing this with Cities Without Number because I remember talking about it. The armor mods, the table, you have what the mod is, and then on the right, a brief little sentence describing what the effect does. Thank you. So I don't have to read through the full paragraph for all the mods. And then weapon mods, you have the same deal. And then you have all the survival gear, which is stuff like crowbars, clothes, camping equipment, battery packs, gas masks, flashlights, tools, lantern, flasks of oil and rope, and all that sort of shit. Unlike D&D, a lot of this shit will be relevant, and also there are rules for a lot of it. Not all of it. Some of it is a little bit of fluff stuff, but a lot of it does have rules attached to it. It's not just there. And then after the survival gear, you have pharmaceuticals, which is things like alcohol, antibiotics, depressants, hallucinogens, opioids, stimulants. Again, the fun stuff. And you might say, like, do all of the drugs have rules too? Yes. All of the drugs have rules. All of the drugs have rules. There's also crude and refined versions of a lot of all of them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so you could have like common alcohol or excellent alcohol, for example. But yes, all of the drugs have rules. And then after the drugs, you have high-tech stims, which are sci-fi drugs, which also have all of their own rules.
Of course.
Of course they do. Yeah. And then it gets into vehicles. Vehicles, again, standard fare. The vehicles in this game are most similar to the vehicles in Cities Without Number, obviously, because that's where you're going to have the most parallel in terms of what kind of vehicles you might need. There is rules for fuel and gas and how long the vehicles can run based on units of gas per hour's run, which is, again, a little more minutia than I personally want, but
a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, I might ignore the rules for fuel for vehicles in my game. That one's a little like, I don't care enough. You know what I mean?
I mean, you can simplify it. Hellscapes did this pretty well, right? It's like fuel is a static number. Every day of travel, you subtract a certain amount from that. Smaller vehicles use less fuel. Like, it's really not that.
I mean, that's already pretty much what it's doing. I just don't care enough to track that number most of the time.
Fair. It does also matter on your apocalypse, right? Like,
it does.
If you're doing Mutant Wasteland and you've got fucking, fusion cores like Fallout, this is practically irrelevant. But if you're doing The Walking Dead...
Well, would you believe there's rules for the vehicles using gas and the vehicles for using, like, cells, like power cells?
Fusion cores? Nice.
Yep. No, they don't call them fusion cores, but if you look at the vehicle sizes, like a medium vehicle, it says uses 12 gas per encumbrance load or whatever, or maybe that's how much it can hold max, I forget. And then it also says 1 type B cell. So
yeah.
There are also, you have modern vehicles and the sci-fi vehicles. Again, everything is split into the modern and the sci-fi. And then there's also vehicle fittings that you can stick on things, which is the same as all the fittings that you could stick on your ship in Stars Without Number. Same kind of shebang. So for characters like Paladin who want to have their Rush Dragon, here's all the fittings you can stick on it.
Yep.
Also, all of the fittings have a number of scrap that you need to spend to build the fitting yourself. So you can either acquire it or build it.
Oh, yeah, this whole part is all for Paladin.
All for you, bud. Yep. Yeah. And then you might say, well, vehicle fittings, do we have vehicle weapons? Of course we have vehicle weapons.
You fool. How could you ask?
How could you say such questions? We also have things like antimatter rifles, drone cannons, grenade launchers, headshot pod, heavy machine guns, main tank gun.
Headshot pod.
Headshot pod, yep.
What the fuck is that?
A family of guided missiles meant for mounted deployment on vehicles or large drones. They always target AC 10 to hit, but require 2 full consecutive rounds of aiming at a visible target to get a target lock on them and prime for firing on the 3rd round. Any bystanders within 5 meters of the impact take damage from it as if a frag grenade. A headshot pod missile takes 20 TL3 scrap to build.
Nice.
Yeah, guided missile system. So yes, you also have vehicle weaponry. And then you might say, can I mod the vehicle? I have fittings and weapons. Can I mod that? Yes, you can.
You silly bitch. How could you ask such a foolish question?
Yeah, how could you ask such ridiculous things? Yes, you can also mod vehicles the way you can mod weapons and armor. And how does that work, you might say? Pretty much the same as modding the weapons and armor. You need to have a certain level of your fix skill. You need a certain amount of scrap to create the mod, and then you can maintain... a player character can maintain a certain number of mods equal to, like, I forget what it is, equal to one of their stats or something like that. I'm blanking on at the moment, but yes, it basically modding the vehicle works like modding everything else. You need the fix skill, you need the scrap, and you need the maintenance points to be able to keep it running. Yeah. And then this last little bit here, in terms of all the equipment stuff, you have high-tech tools and consumer goods. This is like a really weird... Basically, if you want to have your players be able to pick up loot from random enemies and get weird high-tech stuff, there's a giant, like, is it 300 something? No, 150. There's like a huge 150 item long table of random stuff that the players can pick up, and it's shit. Like, I mean, here, let me just
some of them are just insane.
Let me just roll a D100 real quick. 53. Okay, let's do 53 household good. Where is it? I don't know what that is.
Fun fact, Hellscapes also did this. They were called trinkets. Like, yeah.
Here, music generator. Right, so your players kill a guy, they loot his body, he has a music generator on him. Let's see. This AI-driven music composer works to the user's direction, providing the desired sort of music for up to 24 hours per energy cell. So, yeah. It's just like random bits and bobs that the players can potentially pick up from random dudes. Kind of a weird thing, but basically it's just the idea of if the players want to acquire esoteric weird shit from like the before times. I don't know if I would use something like this or not. Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's fun to be like, oh, I picked up this weird thing from that one guy. I guess, whatever.
There's a fun one called Omni piercings, which are just like the little magnetic earrings you get at Spencer's or whatever. But they do come with the added effect of having medicine in them that can cure minor diseases once a month.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so it's like, oh no, I got the flu. Hold on, let me just put my earring on.
Hold on, my earring made me better. Yeah. And then, there's one last little bit in the equipment. Identifying mysterious tech. I don't like this rule at all. I just don't like this whole section. I just don't like the way he did it. One of the few things where I'm like, no. Basically, if you give your players some sort of mysterious tech that they can't immediately identify, you kind of describe it to them and vaguely what it looks like, and then the players have to tell you how they're testing it in some way. So like, for example, it says a pistol-shaped device might be pointed at a rock and its trigger pulled. A vial of liquid might be sniffed and a drop touched to their tongue. Then the player does the weird test, and then the GM makes a secret wisdom plus skill roll, the skill check for the PC, using whichever skill is most appropriate for the item in question. And then if they succeed, you can like help them figure out what it is. But if they fail, they just like can't figure it out. And after 3 failed investigations, they have no idea what it is, or no idea what it does, and cannot activate it effectively. If they succeed, they understand what the tech does and how to operate it. If they fail by 1 or 2, they think they understand how to operate it, but the first time they go to try to trigger it, they'll get the result the GM rolled from the adjacent identification failure table. This just feels like overly nitpicky and mean to me. I just don't love it. Basically, the players have to do all this work to test out the thing, and then you make a roll behind the scenes, and they can still fuck it up, even if the test idea they had was really good, Yeah. So I just don't like this. And I also just don't see myself sticking weird, like, unidentifiable technology in my game on any regular basis. The only time I might do it is if like maybe I do it once or twice as like a what's the word I'm looking for? A key, like a cornerstone of an adventure is discovering the weird thing that we don't know what it does. You know what I mean? Yeah. Other than that, though, I can't see myself using this very much.
I mean, You can. I would just say you can bang your head against it till it works.
That's the other thing,
or unless
right?
you roll really bad and you just break it. Like,
right, yeah. I almost feel like the option to roll should be able to supersede the testing, not be a consequence of the testing.
Yeah.
Right? But
yeah, treat it kind of like an identification roll in D&D for magic items. Like,
yeah.
You can just do it, but if you want to like expedite the process and not short rest it, then yeah, you just do a little more work.
Yeah, so I just don't love the way this hashed out.
That's fair.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of tables to generate the appearance and the usage of the weird mysterious tech thing, what it might be and what it looks like. And that is where we're gonna stop for now. So next time we will start with enclaves and settlements, which is basically this game's equivalent of the faction turn system. Oh yeah. I'm curious because I remember when we went through Worlds Without Number, you were kind of like, this game didn't really generate any ideas for me. Does Ashes generate ideas for you?
Oh,
in terms of like character and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I mean a million. It's a lot of them are like the characters that I wanted to play in Hellscapes. So like the the like weird kind of, or not weird, but like the out of time old folky gunslinger like guild master that they had. I also had like a weird hilarious common rider like wasteland warrior kind of dude on a motorcycle. I also just kind of want to play the old, like almost bring back Grant, just like the old tired war veteran with a sniper.
Yeah.
And like, you know, my cool ostrich and just chill out on a rooftop pinking heads.
I am curious, if you were running this game, would you decrease the lethality a little bit?
I would, yeah, because in my game I wanted things to be brutal insofar as if they didn't play smart, they got hurt and potentially died, but not that they couldn't get into the fights at all, right? I kind of wanted my wasteland to feel more like Borderlands, where you are getting into fights more often, but you got to be tactical.
Go full on with the plot armor rule?
I think so.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that at the very least, it's fun. It's funny. I like the idea of glass, glass characters. Like one thing can knock you down, but the potential to just die is so high. It's not like you're just out for the fight. I'm sure you could do a little bit of mixing and matching where it's like, 10 can knock you out of the fight. But you're not dead, right? You're just down.
Well, it doesn't. No, it does down you. It doesn't auto kill you.
I suppose. It just seems like when you get down, death is just the next step, and there's not.
No, not really. Because you still there's death saves in this game.
True.
Right. You have like 6 rounds, I want to say. Like you go down and you have a -1, or you have like. Now I'm blanking on exactly how the death saves work, but there are death saves in this game, and you can pick someone up from down. It's not like as soon as you go down, you're fucked.
Got it.
And the glass PC thing is not instantaneous death. It is instantaneous down. But yes, you're not just dead straight up.
Got it.
Where's the hold on? Yeah, because you become mortally wounded. Yeah, I don't know. I would probably just go with the default level of like lethality.
That's valid.
Because that kind of sits in the spot where I would want personally. But if I did want to make it a little more Borderlandsy and bump up the characters, yeah, I probably would just go with the plot armor rule.
I really. So you said this is a game you were thinking about running, right?
Not anytime soon.
But it was something that you were like, the next game you run would probably be this?
No.
Oh, which one was it? I thought it was a Without Number game.
At one point, I wanted to run Worlds Without Number, but that became Fabula.
Right.
That turned into Fabula.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily want to run this game, but I very much would like to play in it.
I mean, I would run this game, like, I don't know, somebody begged me or something. I definitely wouldn't have a problem. I mean, I've already run Stars, so I definitely wouldn't have an issue.
You have a level of expertise on the topic.
And I found Stars relatively easy to, like, once you kind of get the flow it's going for, it's pretty easy to run. And like the without number games are so easy to make calls on the fly that even if you don't really even feel like you don't 100% know what you're doing, you can just kind of wing it and you'll be like 90% good most of the time.
Dog, you know what game I'm really struggling with the calls on the fly with? I don't know why I said I would treat it like a question. It's Lancer.
It's Lancer.
I feel like there's a lot where like if I fuck up a call, I don't know. And to be fair, my players do harangue me about like, but like guys, just chill. Like I have to, I don't know. And then I'll end up looking the roll up either.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 minutes go by and I feel like I wasted an assload of time.
Well, Lancer is designed with a very, very different kind of mentality in terms of how its rules interconnect with each other, right? Like the without number games are essentially designed in such a way that you can rip pretty much any singular rule out of the game and the rest of the game like still mostly works, you know, with the exception of like the skill checks basically. You know, like you could rip out pretty much everything except for the skill checks and it'll still like function to some degree. So it's a very different mentality, whereas Lancer is meant to be like a very cohesive web of specific rules interactions. So it's just by its very nature is going to be a game that's harder to make that call on the fly. You know, like there's just no way to get around that.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, that has been us. We will be back next week with more of this nonsense. Indeedly doodly.
Yes, sir.
Brush your teeth and read other games.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.